But Scotland looks very much like an independent country already, playing to the world, especially during the Edinburgh International Festival. Forced to pick one national identity, in 1974, 31% of people in Scotland said they were British. By 2006, this figure had fallen to 14%.
Most salmon is produced in Scotland by Norwegian firms. The entire Scottish salmon industry is now owned by the Norwegians. This is good Scottish venison.
Nice, but not the Britishness party the government has in mind. At this Edinburgh dinner party, the government's idea got an especially warm reception nevertheless, because a minister had suggested it could take place today, and that's a bank holiday, except in Scotland.
You did love it when Liam Byrne suggested that they could have a Britishness Day and suggested the late August bank holiday.
I think that was silly to the point of being damaging.
These things emerge from below, and to invent a British Day. The worst thing would be to actually try and do it. Yes. I mean, it would not, in Scotland, it would, as Tom said, be laughed out of court.
On the official census form, Scots are invited to tick Scottish or British. They can't tick both. Polls vary enormously, but they now suggest that at present only a minority of Scots favour independence.
I find the government's attempt, the government in London, its attempt to reinvent this portmanteau thing called Britishness, with little content inside it. It doesn't appeal to me. I don't think it plays in Scotland particularly.
But the Welsh have got an identity, the Irish have got an identity, and the Scots have got an identity. Something awful has happened in that melting pot down in the south of England.
But you have to accept that national identity is a very complex cultural construct. It can't be defined in a political speech, and anyone who tries to do so makes a complete fool of themselves.
Yes.
And I think Gordon has been making a complete fool of himself.
I think we have to face up to the fact that the Union is in peril, and no amount of pretence will cover that fact up.
Do you think that the speeches about Britishness are having the effect of preserving the Union or tending to pull it further apart?
I think they're tending to pull it further apart.
So do I.
I think they're so ill-judged that is.
But there's one part of the UK where there's a very well-defined sense of Britishness indeed.
Sergeant, we're back again this Sunday to register our protest at not being able to parade along the Javahi Road. We will continue to be here until our rights as British citizens are restored to us. I'd also like to report to you an incident which took place at the church here this morning, where a group in a car drove past before morning service with a tricolour out of it.
Ireland's history for the island of Ireland is different. You can't generalise for Great Britain, England, Wales and Scotland from the very particular and fractured history of Northern Ireland.
British all the way. I mean, you're making speeches about Britishness. You're engaged in a national project.
But let me just make this point. We British defined ourselves against others, the other, the enemy, the threat. We can't define ourselves against others in quite that way of conflict.
Except here, of course, where that's exactly what they're doing.
Britishness.
Anti-Irish.
Flying the Union flag from public buildings is still restricted here. But if you want to see a real Britishness party, look no further.
So it's not surprising that plans for a Britishness Day are still tentative. Well, it's always the same with parties, isn't it? First you invite everyone, then you wonder whether anyone will come, and then there's someone who does come and causes trouble. And guess who has to clear up the mess afterwards? Nice for the kids, though.
I think a lot of students would think we'll all go home and talk about Britishness and celebrate it, but really they just want a holiday so they can just watch telly.
What do the true Brits of the future make of the Great Britishness project? A couple of months ago in Bradford, school students from various English towns got together to try and answer the very question that the government is posing.
I find the question, what is Britishness, quite antagonistic itself, because as soon as you start bending yourself over like personal identities and separating things off into pigeonholes, it can lead to certain dangerous things like nationalism.
And remember Gordon Brown?
To create British jobs for British workers.
He said British jobs for British workers, and I was pretty shocked at that. I thought, you know, this is he's supposedly a Labour Prime Minister saying that. He's obviously whipping up division and hatred.
I think they shouldn't be saying what is Britishness. I think it should be more what's multiness, because Britishness sort of promotes the idea that there's a specific kind of British citizen that they all want, which I don't think you'll get. I think a British citizen will be different everywhere you look.
He is the Olympic champion.
So what is the Britain which we cheered on in Beijing? The nation which will be the Olympic host itself in 4 years' time.
The city of London.
Projecting that rainbow world identity helped us to win the prize.
All about a kid, man! All about a kid!
But when the cheering dies down, what do true Brits share? And as for the citizenship ceremonies for new Brits, remember them?
I will uphold its democratic values. I will.
Why not have them for us all?
It'll end up like the US, where you have to pledge to the flag every morning in the classroom and things. It's not really what you want to do, so.
Is there any thought in the government's mind that there might be some form of marking of when Britons come of age to mark their Britishness, their knowledge of Britishness?
I mean, I think there are. I've seen no piece of paper about this in the British government. I mean, I think there are thoughts around in ether about that. It would obviously be a very different process for people who have an absolute right to be a citizen. And I think what would be a good idea, this is Jay Straw, not the British government, now you've raised this, is for us to ask young people what they think. And you could have informal ceremonies if you wanted. But, of course, there are informal ceremonies called 18th birthday parties.
Happy 18th birthday. You're an adult British citizen. Take a moment to consider who you are. Would that be such a bad idea?
People have to be extremely naive to think that the problems that we're facing today in 2008 in Great Britain can somehow be resolved by applying some new sets of Britishness and then thinking that after that we'll have no problems.
Take down the Union Jack. It clashes with the sunset.
You know that you're British?
Yes.
How do you know?
Well, in my own opinion, I believe I'm British because I've got a British passport and I was born in this country.
What's Britishness to you, Ismail?
Well, Britishness to me is... I don't know, actually. To be honest, I don't know what Britishness is to me.
If I say Britishness, what words immediately come to mind?
A great nation.
But wait a moment. That's where we started, searching for the essence of this great nation of ours.
Winston Churchill.
We are unique, we are special.
To be British is to be proud.
Why do you think the government wants us to think so much about Britishness? Why do you think they're asking us to do that?
Well, to bring everybody together and so they can find out on the opinions of people and to, like, define what Britishness is.
But you don't think the government is asking us to think about Britishness because it knows what it is. You think the government's asking the question because it doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
And you're just helping the government out.
Yes.
Vivian White reporting from the Britishness Day party, an event first suggested by Gordon Brown, the Scottish Prime Minister of the UK and the person who flew the flag of St George earlier this year from 10 Downing Street on England's National Day for the first time ever. Subtle stuff, identity.